Today I'm in the southwest of France, but I am not unfortunately here to try out cheese and wine. Instead, I'm here to try out this thing. This is the 2019 Mercedes-Benz G-Class. The G-Wagon, Mercedes' beloved off-roading luxury SUV, is all new this year, and I'm excited to find out if Mercedes engineers have managed to keep a lot of the quirky anachronistic things that made us love this thing in the first place, while also improving on some of the frustrations that existed when you drove this on-road. So let's find out by taking it for a drive.
First though, let's start with the boring background bits. The new G-Class is claimed to be up to 375 pounds lighter than before, even though it's over 2 inches longer and 3 inches wider. That also means there's way more interior space. 2.7 inches more elbow room makes the front seats feel roomier, while the second row gets a whopping 6 inches more legroom.
First impressions on the road, well, it still feels like a G-Class. It's big, beefy, commanding. You've got this great view forward through the very upright windshield over the hood and around those corner lights at the front. And yet, straight away from behind the wheel, I can tell that this is a new G-Class. It just feels so much more modern. It feels like a Mercedes from this decade. And that's not being reductionist. I'm saying that where the old G-Class felt like a very, very old car that Mercedes had miraculously managed to keep up with modern safety and emissions and so on requirements, the new one feels, well, it feels like a new car. Let's start with the steering and handling from the front end. First of all, rack and pinion steering setup now instead of the old recirculating ball system, and what that means is that it's not as heavy, it's a little bit more precise, it's still a little on the vague side, but not in terms of the guess and check way that the old G-Class was. The front suspension, developed in part with AMG, is now fully independent, and what you can tell straight away is, again, there's just much better tracking from the front end. You can tell what's going to happen, it's much more precise and accurate. For a G-Class, of course, this thing still sits very high off the ground, and as we'll talk about in a second, when you drive it enthusiastically, you are reminded that it's still tall, heavy, and very wide. I guess what's impressive is that Mercedes did send us around on pretty twisty, narrow roads in this car. You know, it is an off-road focused SUV, but because of all the changes with the suspension and the steering and everything, you do actually feel a little more confident in driving it around these narrow French villages. Definitely still a wide vehicle, of course. I think this is about 110% of the width of most of the lanes on these roads, but that's fine. The engine and automatic transmission work so well in gentle driving. 9 speeds, but you never really feel when the thing shifts between them. It's just super smooth and easy. In terms of acceleration, we've got the bi-turbocharged 4-litre V8, familiar from many other Mercedes models. Great amount of power, great power delivery, really smooth in the way the turbos come on, really easy to use. And now a 9-speed automatic transmission instead of a 7-speed, so you can just use all that power more easily in more situations. I can go into sport mode instead of comfort. Throttle response and the shifts get a little more aggressive. You can hear there's a little bit of burbling on the exhaust notes. I'd love to exercise a lot more of this vehicle's performance. It can do 130 miles an hour, but you know how the French feel about speed cameras. Another area the engineers really worked on was keeping the new G-Class quieter, and here's the thing, even though it is quieter than the old G-Class, it's still not exactly a silent luxury vehicle. It's still very tall, very boxy, very upright. These flat windows certainly don't help things. We're doing 85 kilometers an hour now, and there's quite a bit of wind noise noticeable from behind the wheel. In terms of ride and handling though, it is very composed. Now it's got big wheels and it's still a G-Class, it still has a solid rear axle, but I don't feel quite the same skittishness over bumps anymore. It tracks over the road very smoothly. Because as we know, although yes, it's great that this thing can ford 27 inches of water and it's got 9.5 inches of ground clearance, both of those metrics are up compared to the old one, most people who drive this thing are doing what I'm doing. They're driving it on paved roads because it's big and it's cool and it's impressive. The more I look around the cabin, the more I find ways in which it's improved. For instance, we've got real cup holders down here, finally, thank goodness. There's a real sunroof up here. The color displays are much better. The trim just looks and feels much smarter. I mean, the G-Class is an expensive vehicle. We don't have pricing on the 2019 model just yet, but now it actually feels like the cabin merits that design. And yet there are still classic G-Class touches. You know, we've still got this grab handle on the passenger side of the dashboard. The door locks and the door handles still have that big ka-thunk click sound that you've always known from the old ones. Downside is, of course, you have to slam the door pretty hard to close it when you get in, but I guess that purists will put up with that if it means they get that ka-thunk sound that they like out of the G-Wagon. So, there you go.
And don't think I could review a G-Class without taking it off-road for a little bit. On rocky, rough terrain, this G550 is brilliant, clambering over all sorts of surfaces with ease. As ever, you get 3 lockable differentials, as well as a new G mode that automatically adjusts the adaptive suspension for better performance over bumpy surfaces. And should you find lots of water in your way, rest easy knowing you can ford 27.6 inches, that's more than 2 feet of the stuff without issue.
Now, I can't wait to get more time behind the wheel of the 2019 G550 back home, but what I can tell you so far is that it seems to have improved this SUV in every way. And so whether you're going to use it for actual muddy off-roading or you're just going to use it as a brash, luxurious SUV, the 2019 G550 makes a very strong first impression. And you can find out even more about it by visiting motor1.com.